The stars outside the tall windows of Haven Dormitory always seemed calm. From the safety of orbit, the Earth looked like a shining jewel wrapped in soft clouds and deep blue oceans. Students often gathered near the viewing deck after their classes, talking about their dreams of becoming pilots, engineers, scientists, and leaders who would help humanity expand further into the stars. For most of them, life at the dormitory was strict but full of hope. Among those students was Alara Vance, a 20-year-old cadet who had always carried herself with quiet determination. She was not the top of her class, nor was she the most brilliant in technical subjects, but she had a quality that others noticed. She never gave up. No matter how tough the exams, no matter how long the training drills, she kept going. People around her respected that strength, even if they sometimes teased her for being stubborn. On the night of her birthday, she sat in the common room with a few friends, laughing over ration-packed desserts that they had decorated with glowing sugar crystals from the station stores. The air smelled faintly metallic, as it always did in recycled environments, but the warmth of her friends made it feel like home. They sang, clapped, and cheered for her, and she felt the rare comfort of belonging. But that night, everything changed. It began with a shudder through the floor. The lights flickered. A sharp alarm sounded from the walls, followed by the heavy, grinding sound of steel barriers sliding into place. Doors locked shut. The friendly hum of the life support system grew louder, strained. Then came the announcement, cold and mechanical. Emergency lockdown protocol initiated. All personnel remain in dormitory sections. External communications disabled. At first, the students looked at one another in confusion. A lockdown drill was not unusual, but this felt different. The steel shutters on the windows closed, hiding the stars. The vibrations under their feet continued as if the station itself was preparing for battle. "Is this another training simulation?" one cadet asked nervously. Alara stood and shook her head. No. Something's wrong. Her instincts were right. Within minutes, their instructors gathered them in the central hall. Commander Avel, the strict but fair officer who oversaw Haven Dormitory, stepped forward. His usually calm expression was pale and tight. "Cadets," he began, his voice firm but heavy. "This is not a drill. Our outposts in orbit have come under attack by an alien coalition known as the Velith. They struck without warning. Earth's fleet is engaging them even as we speak." Gasps filled the hall. Some cadets whispered in fear. Others clenched their fists. The Velith were a name from rumors, a species that had long avoided direct contact with humanity, but had been seen watching from afar. No one had expected them to launch a war. Commander Avel continued, "Haven Dormitory has been sealed under automatic defense protocols. Our position is secure for now. The station's drones and barriers will protect us, but communications are cut. We cannot send or receive messages until the threat subsides." The word struck hard. They were cut off. Alone. One cadet shouted, "What about our families on Earth?" Another asked, "Are the colonies safe?" The commander's silence told them enough. That night, panic spread like fire through the dormitory. Groups of students argued, some crying, some shouting at the instructors. The staff tried to keep order, but fear was stronger than discipline. The idea that Earth could be under attack, that fleets of alien ships might already be burning the skies, was too heavy for young cadets to carry. In the middle of this storm, Alara felt her chest tighten. Her hands shook, and for a moment she wanted to sink into despair like the others. But then she saw the frightened faces around her, friends who had laughed with her only hours ago, now trembling. If no one stood strong, everyone would break. She climbed onto one of the benches and raised her voice. "Listen to me." The noise around her quieted a little. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. She swallowed her fear and spoke. "We don't know what's happening outside, but we do know this. We are still alive. Haven is strong. It was built to keep us safe. If Earth falls, if colonies burn, if fleets are destroyed, then we have to survive here. We can't give up. If we give up, then humanity has no future." Her words struck something deep in the others. Some still shook their heads, unwilling to believe, but many straightened their backs. Her voice was not the commander's, not official, but it came from one of their own. Ilara raised her hand in a fist. I swear humanity will endure, and I'll fight with everything I have to make sure of it. Who's with me? Slowly, one hand after another rose into the air. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough to show that hope was not gone. That night marked the beginning of something new. Days passed inside the sealed dormitory. The students followed strict schedules, rationing their food and rotating shifts to maintain the power systems. At first, many believed the lockdown would end quickly, that Earth's fleets would repel the Velith and the barriers would open again. But as time stretched on, hope began to fade. Every day without news was another cut into their hearts. Some sat staring at the steel shutters, whispering about what might be happening beyond them. Others buried themselves in tasks, fixing air, recyclers, repairing water filters, or checking emergency stores. Ilara threw herself into work. She volunteered for every repair team, learned every system she could, and encouraged others to do the same. She reminded them that action was the only cure for fear. One evening, as she tightened a coolant valve in the engineering bay, her friend Mara spoke beside her. You really believe what you said that night, don't you? About enduring? Ilara wiped sweat from her forehead. I have to. If I let myself doubt, then I'll fall apart. And if I fall apart, others will too. Mara gave a small smile. You're stubborn, Ilara. That's why people are following you. Ilara shook her head. I don't want them to follow me. I just want them to believe in something bigger than their fear. But deep inside, she felt the weight of leadership pressing down. She had made a vow, and every day it became harder to keep. The true test came a week later. Late in the night cycle, the station shook violently. Sirens blared. The cadets rushed to the central hall, where screens lit up with warning signs. External defenses engaged. Unknown contacts detected. Everyone froze. The Velith had found them. Commander Avel gave orders, his voice steady despite the danger. All cadets remain in sealed sections. The station's drones will engage. Trust the defenses. But Ilara saw the terror spreading again. The same terror from the first night. People were ready to panic, ready to give in. She stepped forward. We don't run from this, we hold together. This dormitory is more than walls, it's us. If we stay strong, then nothing can break us. The ground rumbled again. Somewhere outside, unseen battles were being fought in the dark of space. The students huddled together, waiting, praying. Hours passed before the alarms finally ceased. When silence returned, the commander spoke. The defense is held. The enemy has retreated. For now. Relief washed over the dormitory, but it was mixed with dread. The Velith knew they were here. It was only a matter of time before they returned. That night, as Ilara lay awake in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, she whispered to herself, We will endure. No matter what comes, we will endure. And though the stars were hidden behind steel, in her heart she imagined them still shining. The days after the first Velith attack were heavy with silence. Haven Dormitory floated in orbit like a sealed tomb, its wide halls echoing with the sound of footsteps, whispers, and the steady hum of machines. The students carried on with their routines, but the spark of excitement that once filled the academy was gone. Now every task was survival. Ilara Vance walked the corridors with purpose. She had become a quiet anchor for many cadets. Whenever panic rose, she reminded them of the vow she had made, that humanity would endure no matter what. It was not a title or a command that gave her this role, but her refusal to give in when others wavered. Still, even she felt the strain. Rations and repairs food was the first concern. Haven had supplies meant for months but not for the long years of a war. The kitchens became ration centers where meals were carefully measured. The cadets learned to live on smaller portions, powdered protein mixed with water, dried fruits, nutrient bars. The birthday treats of sugar crystals felt like a memory from another life. Water recycling became another problem. Filters clogged faster under heavy use. Ilara organized engineering teams to keep systems clean, leading by example. She crawled through narrow shafts, tightened valves, and hauled replacement parts. Sweat and grease became her daily companions. Every success in keeping the station running lifted spirits, but each repair also reminded them of their fragile situation. One mistake, one failure, and the dormitory could become a coffin in orbit. Faint whispers from the void one afternoon. While working in the communications bay, a cadet named Rin Talbot discovered fragments of encrypted signals bleeding through the static. He rushed to Ilara with excitement. "I think it's from outside," he said, his eyes bright. "The Velith are broadcasting something." Together they replayed the garbled messages. Most of it was in alien code, impossible to understand, but scattered between bursts of static were human voices, distorted, desperate. Resistance fleet scattered, holding out at request reinforcements. Velith advancing on colonies, losses heavy. Earth defense grid compromised. The fragments hit Ilara like knives. She wanted to believe Earth was safe, but these messages painted another picture. Fleets breaking, colonies burning, humanity pushed back. When Rin looked at her for guidance, she steadied her voice. "We don't know the full story, but it means people are still fighting. Humanity is not finished yet." Her words calmed him, but when she was alone, she pressed her forehead against the console, fighting back tears. If Earth truly was falling, Haven might be one of the last places humanity survived. Divisions among cadets as the days stretched into weeks. A dangerous divide grew inside the dormitory. Some cadets agreed with Ilara's vision of endurance, holding strong, guarding the knowledge and resources within Haven until the war passed. But another group, led by Kalen Dross, believed hiding was cowardice. Kalen was tall, bold, and skilled in combat training. Many admired his confidence. He argued that they should take control of the dormitory's weapons and strike back against the Velith. "Every day we sit here doing nothing, humanity dies out there," he told the gathered cadets one evening. His voice was sharp, filled with anger. "We have drones, defenses, and the minds to use them. Waiting will only make us weak." Ilara stood to answer him. Her voice was calm, but her words carried strength. "If we rush out there, we'll be destroyed. This station is not a battleship, it's a sanctuary. If the fleets fall, Haven will be what remains. We hold knowledge, records, even genetic archives. This dormitory was built for training the future. If Earth falls, then we are that future." Some nodded in agreement, but others muttered uneasily. The split was clear: endurance versus action. The rivalry between Ilara and Kalen became sharper with each passing day. Neither wanted open conflict, but both knew the dormitory could not survive if the students fractured. A dangerous discovery. While exploring the sealed sections of Haven, Ilara's team discovered a hidden fabrication bay deep within the lower levels. Dust covered the consoles as if it had been unused for years. But once powered, it revealed advanced 3D printers, material for construction, and a library of blueprints. Ilara stared at the glowing screens, hope rising in her chest. With these tools, they could build drones, repair systems, maybe even design new technology. Haven was not just a dormitory, it was a vault of human survival. When she shared the discovery with others, excitement filled the air. Some saw it as proof of her vision, but Kalen seized the moment too. "With this, we could arm ourselves properly," he said, his eyes blazing. "We could build weapons, strike at the Velith, and show them humanity won't hide." Ilara shook her head. "Or we could build systems to keep us alive for years. This is not about one battle, it's about the future." The argument reignited, fiercer than before. Students chose sides. Some looked at Ilara as a leader of endurance, others at Kalen as a leader of defiance. The dormitory, once united, now trembled on the edge of division. The burden of leadership late at night. Ilara sat in the observation deck, though the shutters still blocked the stars. She pressed her hand against the cold metal, imagining the cosmos beyond. Mara joined her quietly. "You carry too much," she said softly. "You can't hold all of us together forever." Ilara sighed. "I don't know what else to do. If we split apart, we'll destroy ourselves without the Velith firing a single shot." Mara placed a hand on her shoulder. "You can't control everything. But you can be true to your vow. That's why people believe in you. Not because you have every answer, but because you refuse to give up." Ilara closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. She had sworn humanity would endure, but endurance was more than survival. It was holding hope even when the world seemed ready to collapse. The hidden war within, as days turned into weeks, the dormitory lived in uneasy balance. Ilara's followers repaired systems, organized food stores, and studied the archives for ways to sustain themselves long-term. Kalen's group trained relentlessly, turning exercise halls into makeshift drill grounds, preparing for combat they believed was inevitable. The instructors, caught between the two visions, tried to keep peace, but even they saw the divide growing. Then, one night, the Velith returned. The first warning came as faint vibrations through the floor. Then alarms blared. External contact detected. Defense perimeter compromised. Panic spread instantly. Some cadets rushed to the safe rooms, others to the control centers. On the main screens, red markers showed enemy drones closing in. Haven's automated defenses activated, firing beams of light into the darkness beyond. Ilara ran to the command deck, her heart pounding. She saw the defenses holding, but the pressure mounting. The Velith were testing them, probing for weakness. Kalen appeared beside her, eyes fierce. "Do you see now? They will never stop. If we don't fight back, they will crush us." Ilara clenched her fists. She wanted to argue, but she knew he was partly right. The Velith would not leave them alone forever. But charging out blindly would only doom them faster. The battle raged outside for hours before the enemy finally pulled back. Haven stood, but its defenses bore scars. As silence returned, the cadets looked to their leaders again, Ilara, steady and determined, and Kalen, burning with the fire of defiance. The hidden war within Haven had truly begun. That night, Ilara gathered her closest allies. Around a dimly lit table in the fabrication bay, she spoke in a low but firm voice. "The Velith believe we are only children hiding in a school," she said. "They don't know what we have here. Knowledge, tools, the will to survive. We must use this not to chase a single victory, but to send a message that humanity will never vanish." Her friends listened, eyes wide. She had no clear plan yet, only a spark of an idea. But that spark was enough to light hope again. In the shadows of the dormitory, Ilara Vance prepared for the battles to come. The war outside was fierce, but the war within their hearts would decide if humanity endured, or if it fell into silence. The silence after the Velith's second attack was heavier than before. Haven Dormitory still floated, its shield scarred and its defenses weakened. The cadets moved through the halls with tight faces and wary eyes, no longer able to pretend that they were safe. Everyone knew the truth now. The Velith would not stop. They would come again, and the next time Haven might not survive. Ilara Vance felt that truth in every breath. She walked the dormitory with her usual calm expression, but inside her chest her heart was heavy. She had sworn that humanity would endure, but each new attack tested her vow. She could not let despair win. Cracks among the cadets' tension inside the dormitory had reached its peak. Kalendros and his group of fighters grew louder in their demands. They trained with mock weapons, used the gyms as drill halls, and spoke openly of seizing the command deck. One evening in the cafeteria, Kalen stood on a table and shouted so all could hear, "Look around you. The Velith are not waiting. They are testing our walls, our drones, our shields. And what do? We hide like frightened children. I say enough. We have the tools to strike back. We must fight." Cheers rose from his followers. Ilara stood too, facing him. Her voice was steady but sharp. "And if you rush out there, what happens? You'll die, and this dormitory will die with you. Haven is not a weapon. It is humanity's last sanctuary. We must protect it, not throw it away." Some students nodded, but others muttered angrily. The divide cut deep. The instructors tried to calm the room, but the tension stayed. That night, Ilara sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the shutters that hid the stars. She whispered, "Hold together, please." But she knew the rift was growing, and soon words might not be enough. A glimpse of the enemy days later, a scout drone sent from Haven returned with damaged memory. Engineers worked for hours to repair its records, and when they finally succeeded, they projected grainy images in the hall. The cadets gasped. The Velith ships were massive, angular shapes of dark metal glowing with sickly green lights. They moved with precision, surrounding and crushing smaller human vessels. The images showed battles where human fleets scattered, their firepower outmatched. But something else caught Ilara's eye. In the background of one battle, a human station had survived far longer than expected. Its defenses glowed bright, its resistance fierce. She pointed to it. Do you see? Humanity fights still. We are not alone. The room stirred. For a moment, hope returned. But Kalen sees the chance too. And do you see the rest? We are losing. Those ships will come here soon. If we wait, we are finished. The argument raged again, but Alara's mind was elsewhere. She noticed that the Velith ignored Haven in their recordings. They passed it by, focusing on larger stations and fleets. Perhaps, she thought, they saw Haven as unimportant, only a school, not a threat. That mistake could be their chance. The secret plan that night, Alara gathered her closest allies in the hidden fabrication bay. The machines hummed softly, casting pale light on their faces. She spoke in a low voice. The Velith don't understand us. They think Haven is only a dormitory. But this place holds more than students, it holds the future. If we can build something here, not a weapon to destroy, but a voice to speak, we can prove to the galaxy that humanity will endure. Rin frowned. A voice, you mean? A signal? Alara nodded. Yes, not just a distress call. A broadcast of everything we are, our history, our music, our science, our promise. A message that we will not vanish no matter what happens outside. Her friends exchanged uncertain looks. Mara asked, will that really help us? It will, Alara said firmly. It will call survivors to us. It will show allies that we live. And even if Haven falls, our message will travel farther than the Velith can reach. For the first time in weeks, her words lit real hope in their eyes. They began working in secret, gathering materials, studying blueprints, designing a system powerful enough to break through the Velith jamming fields. Kalen's move, but secrets were hard to keep in the closed dormitory. Kalen noticed the late-night meetings, the hidden activity. He confronted Alara in the corridor one morning. You're building something, he said, his voice sharp. What is it? A weapon? Alara stood tall. Not a weapon, a signal. Something to help humanity endure. Kalen sneered. Endure, that's your word for surrender. While you waste time on messages, the Velith prepare to destroy us. We need weapons, not words. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. If you will not lead us to fight, then I will. For the first time, Alara saw in his eyes not just anger, but desperation. He was afraid, and fear had turned into fire. She realized then that Kalen was not her enemy. His fear was. But fear could tear Haven apart if left unchecked. The breach the Velith returned sooner than anyone expected. Alarms screamed through the dormitory. Outer defenses compromised. Boarding parties detected. Panic spread instantly. The students scrambled into defensive positions, guided by instructors. Automated turrets fired in the outer halls. The sound of impacts shook the station. Kalen and his fighters seized the moment. To the command deck, he shouted. We will fight them ourselves. His followers rushed after him, leaving chaos in their wake. Alara grabbed Mara and Rin. We need to hold the fabrication bay. The broadcast must be finished. It's our only chance. The dormitory became a battlefield. Drones clashed in the halls, sparks flying. Cadets wielded improvised weapons. Shock rods, welding torches, even pipes torn from the walls. Fear filled the air, but so did determination. Alara led her team through smoke-filled corridors, guiding them to the fabrication bay. Along the way, she saw Kalen and his group fighting desperately near the command deck, holding off boarding drones with brutal courage. For all their recklessness, they were protecting Haven. The message in the fabrication bay, Rin activated the transmitter they had built. Lights flared, circuits hummed. The machine was huge, a web of wires and glowing panels linked to the station's core systems. Alara, once we start, the Velith will detect it, Rin warned. They already know we're here, Alara replied. Let them come. Our message will go farther than they can reach. Mara placed a data core into the console. It holds Earth's history, our culture, our science. Everything we could save. Alara placed her hand on the control panel. Her voice was steady. Then let it speak for us. The transmitter roared to life. A wave of energy pulsed outward, carrying the message of humanity into the stars. Images, music, words, all woven into a signal that no jamming could silence. At that same moment, the Velith breached the outer halls. Their drones swarmed, cutting through defenses, advancing toward the heart of Haven. The stand the cadets fought with everything they had. Sparks lit the halls, smoke filled the air, but they refused to break. Kalen and his fighters, though battered, held the line at the command deck, buying precious minutes. In the fabrication bay, Alara stood with her team, defending the transmitter. She wielded a shock rod, striking down drones that slipped through. Her arms ached, Her body screamed with exhaustion, but she held on. Mara shouted over the noise. "The broadcast is spreading. It's working." Ilara's heart surged with hope. Even if Haven fell, their message would live. But the Velith pressed closer, their machines tearing through doors and walls. The dormitory trembled as if it might break apart. Humanity's flame. At the height of the chaos, Kalen appeared at the entrance to the fabrication bay, wounded but still standing. His clothes were scorched, his face streaked with blood, but his eyes burned with fierce light. "You were right," he said hoarsely. This is how we endure." "Hold the line!" With his remaining fighters, he formed a shield in the doorway, blocking the Velith drones. The clash was brutal, but they held, their bodies a wall of defiance. Ilara felt tears in her eyes. For all their differences, Kalen had chosen to fight for something greater than himself. The transmitter pulsed again, brighter, stronger. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Humanity was alive, unbroken, enduring. The battle raged on, but Ilara no longer felt fear. She felt fire. No matter what happened to Haven, no matter how many Velith ships surrounded them, humanity's voice now traveled through the stars. And with that voice came a promise. Humanity will endure. The silence of space was never truly silent. To the students inside Haven Dormitory, the hum of machines, the faint tremor of power lines, and the low beat of their own hearts filled the void. Ilara Vance stood at the command deck watching the sensor screen. Outside, a swarm of Velith ships closed in, sharp shapes of silver and black, their engines burning like blue fire against the endless night. The shield around the dormitory was already cracked in 2 places. Energy reserves were running low. They had fought bravely for weeks, but Ilara knew the real battle was only beginning. This time, the Velith were not testing the defenses. They were coming to destroy everything. Behind her, dozens of cadets worked at their stations. Some were sending power to the shield grid. Others were patching up damaged drones. Everyone was tired. Everyone's eyes showed fear. But nobody ran. They stayed because Ilara had asked them to believe. "Status?" she asked in a steady voice. A boy from the engineering team answered. "Outer defenses down to 20%. If they push harder, shields will fall in minutes." Ilara nodded slowly. She wanted to speak words of comfort, but lies would not help them now. Instead, she said, "Hold as long as you can. Every second matters." She looked at the device at the center of the room, the signal weapon. It was not a bomb, not a gun. It was a transmitter built with parts from the fabrication bays, wires tied by hand, circuits tested by shaking fingers. It was the students' greatest hope. When activated, it would send a message across human space calling anyone left alive to rally. But the Velith were not fools. They had likely detected the signal weapon already. That was why they were sending boarding ships. "Commander," someone shouted. They called her that now, even though she was just a cadet. "Boarding crafts approaching." Ilara's chest tightened. This was the moment. The walls of Haven Dormitory would no longer protect them. The Velith were coming inside. The docking bays shook with heavy impacts as enemy vessels clamped against the station's hull. Students in makeshift armor waited behind barricades, gripping shock rifles and improvised weapons. They were young, frightened, but determined. Kalen Dross stood at the front of one defense line. His eyes were hard, his jaw set. He had once challenged Ilara, had once wanted to break the lockdown and charge into the war like a hero. Now, after weeks of struggle, he had changed. He understood that true courage was not reckless. True courage was standing when you knew you might fall. He glanced back at the students behind him. "They will come through fast. Hold your ground. If they take the corridor, they'll reach the command deck." The hatch exploded inward. Smoke filled the air. Velith soldiers marched through, tall and armored, their movements precise. They carried weapons that hissed with deadly energy. Kalen raised his rifle. "For humanity." The students answered with a cry and opened fire. On the command deck, the sounds of battle echoed through the intercom. Ilara forced herself not to flinch. She could not help in the corridors, her duty was here. She bent over the console, linking power lines to the transmitter. A girl from the science team called out, "Signal array charged to 60%. Faster," Ilara whispered. "Please, faster." Every explosion, every scream that came from the speakers pressed against her heart. She wanted to run to her friends, to stand beside them. But if the signal failed, then all their sacrifice would mean nothing. She closed her eyes for a moment and remembered her vow from the first night of lockdown. Humanity will endure. She had said those words, and now they burned in her mind like fire. The corridors were chaos. Kalen fought like a man possessed. Philith soldiers advanced in lines, their weapons tearing through barricades. But the students fought back with everything they had. Explosives made from cleaning chemicals. Turrets rewired from maintenance drones. Pure courage that refused to bend. A blast struck Kalen in the side, knocking him down. Pain seared through him, but he pushed himself up. Around him, 2 students fell, but the rest closed ranks. Kalen raised his voice. "Do not give ground. Every second we stand is another second for the signal." The Velith pushed harder, their numbers greater. But the students did not break. On the command deck, alarms screamed.
"Boarders are through level 3.
Someone shouted. Alara's heart raced. Signal status? 90%. Almost there, almost. Then the lights flickered. Power drain. The Velith had pierced the outer grid and were stealing energy from the dormitory systems. Ilara slammed her hand on the console. "Reroute life support power to the transmitter." A boy gasped. "But without that oxygen, undo it," Ilara shouted. The boy obeyed, tears in his eyes. The room grew colder at once, the air thinner. But the signal weapon glowed brighter, humming with rising power. In the corridors, Kalen saw lights dim. He understood at once what Ilara had done. His lips curved into a faint smile even through his pain. "She's doing it," he whispered. "She's sending the call." A Velith officer charged at him, blade raised. Kalen met the strike with his rifle, forcing the enemy back. He knew he would not live much longer. But if his death bought time, it was worth it. He shouted one last time to his team, for Ilara, for humanity. Back on the command deck, the transmitter reached full power. The science girl's voice broke with relief. "Signal ready!" Ilara slammed her hand on the activation control. A deep pulse shook the dormitory as the signal burst out into space. It carried words, images, songs. It carried the history of Earth, the faces of its people, the stories of survival. It carried Ilara's own recorded vow. "We are not finished. We will endure." The message spread across human channels, through abandoned relay stations, through shattered colonies. It reached distant survivors hiding on moons, resistance fleets fighting in shadows, even alien races who had doubted humanity's strength. The Velith soldiers on the dormitory knew what had happened. They redoubled their attack, desperate to silence the beacon. The doors to the command deck shook under heavy blasts. Students raised rifles, ready for the final fight. Ilara stood tall, facing the door. Her voice was steady as she said, "If this is the end, then we end as humanity's guardians. Stand proud." But it was not the end. From the black of space, engines flared. Ships appeared, scarred, broken, but alive. The human resistance had heard the call. Old warships, cargo haulers turned into weapons, even civilian craft armed with stolen guns. All of them surged toward Haven Dormitory. Multiple signatures incoming. The sensor officer cried, "They're ours!" The Velith fleet turned in surprise, but the humans charged with fury. Missiles lit the darkness, beams cut across the void. The resistance had come, and they were not alone. Other voices answered too. Small alien ships, neutral species who had decided that humanity deserved to fight for survival. Inside the dormitory, the Velith soldiers hesitated. They heard the battle outside. For the first time, they realized humanity was not broken. The students seized the moment and counterattacked, forcing the boarders back step by step. Kalen, wounded but alive, led the charge with a final roar. Hours later, the battle was over. The Velith fleet was driven away, retreating into the dark. The dormitory was damaged but still standing. Bodies lay where brave students had fallen, but their sacrifice had not been wasted. On the command deck, Ilara stood in silence, staring at the stars. Around her, survivors wept, embraced, or simply sat down in exhaustion. The signal weapon still glowed faintly. Its message continued to travel across the galaxy, a beacon that would never stop. Kalen limped into the room, his arm in a sling. He gave Ilara a tired grin. "You did it." "We all did." Ilara shook her head. "Not me. Us. Every one of us." She looked at the faces around her, young and scarred, yet unbroken. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the room. "We are not children hiding in a school anymore. We are the seed of a future. And no matter what comes, humanity will endure." The students answered with a cheer that shook the walls. The dormitory was no longer just a place of learning. It was a beacon, a fortress and a promise to the stars, and in that moment, sealed in the dormitory but open to all of space, humanity's future truly began.